I'm about to tell you something that might sound completely backward at first, the kind of thing people hear and immediately think that can't be right. But stay with me, because by the end of this, it's going to make unsettling sense. I'm Dr. Sarah Mitchell. I've spent the better part of 2 decades in cardiac surgery, with my hands inside chests and my eyes on arteries. And there's a pattern I've seen so many times that it still follows me home at night. I'll meet someone who looks like the perfect patient on paper. They're responsible. They show up to appointments. They take their meds. They do their labs. They take the supplements their doctor told them to take. Every day, faithfully, year after year. And then I look at their scans. Their bones? Beautiful, strong, dense. Their hips look like they could carry them into their 90s. Their spines look solid. Their bone density scores are excellent for age. But then we look at their heart. And what I see isn't aging. It isn't a little plaque. It's not even the typical soft buildup we expect. It's rock. Arteries that should flex and expand with every heartbeat are stiff, brittle, calcified. Heart valves that should flutter open and shut like thin, living curtains have turned into stone doors. It's like the body built a fortress in the skeleton and used the leftover bricks to build a prison inside the cardiovascular system. And the part that haunts me most is this. These are often the people who are trying the hardest to do the right thing. The good patients. The ones who took calcium because they were told it would protect their bones. The ones who swallowed vitamin D every morning because they were told it was safe, essential, protective. And yes, those supplements help their bones, but nobody warned them that in the wrong context, they can also help harden what should never harden. Nobody explained that vitamin D is powerful. It's not a harmless little sunshine vitamin you sprinkle on top of life like glitter. It's a hormone-like signal in your body, and signals have consequences. Nobody told them that vitamin D can open the gate for calcium to flood in without telling calcium where to go. So what I'm going to share will sound confrontational to conventional supplement advice. But it's not fear-mongering. It's pattern recognition, learned the hard way, on operating tables, in imaging labs, and in the quiet moments when you tell someone their valve has turned to stone. By the end of this, you'll understand why vitamin D without the right partners can become dangerous, especially after 60. The 5 common mistakes people make that turn a well-intended supplement routine into a slow, silent problem, and what you can start doing today to protect your bones without paying for it with your heart. Before we start, I'd love to know, where are you watching from today? Just drop your state or city in the comments below. It helps us feel like one community here, learning together and supporting one another. And if you have any natural health tips of your own, feel free to share those too. Someone else might really benefit from hearing what's worked for you. Arthur, the healthy man whose valve became stone. Arthur was 72 when I met him. Retired accountant, sharp mind, the kind of man who still did taxes for friends, just to keep busy. He walked 3 miles most mornings. He ate what people would call a good diet, and he took supplements like clockwork every single day for 8 years. 1,000 milligrams calcium, $2,000 IU vitamin D. His doctor told him it would protect him from osteoporosis, prevent fractures, keep him strong. And it worked, if you only look at bones. Arthur's bone density looked fantastic for a man his age. Then symptoms crept in. He started getting winded on stairs, a pressure sensation in his chest when he exerted himself. Nothing dramatic, just enough to make him uneasy. His doctor ordered an echocardiogram, an ultrasound of the heart. And there it was. Arthur's aortic valve, the main gate that controls blood leaving the heart, was calcified. Not mildly, not a little stiff. It had become rigid, thick, stone-like. The delicate valve leaflets that are supposed to open and close with each beat had turned into inflexible slabs. His valve wasn't opening properly anymore. Blood couldn't exit the heart efficiently, so his heart compensated, like hearts always do. It pushed harder. It thickened. It worked overtime against a partially closed door. Arthur stared at me when I explained it. "But I've been taking my supplements," he said. "I've been doing what I was told. How did this happen?" That's the moment I wish every doctor could see. Because it's the moment patients realize something terrifying. You can follow instructions perfectly and still be led into harm if the instructions were incomplete. So I said, "Arthur, vitamin D is not the villain. Calcium is not the villain. The problem is what happens when you open the gates and don't direct traffic. Vitamin D opens the gate, but it doesn't direct the calcium. Vitamin D's role, among other things, is to increase calcium absorption from the gut. When you take vitamin D, it's like telling your intestines, open up, pull calcium in, so calcium enters your bloodstream. And once calcium is floating in your blood, it's not intelligent. It doesn't come with GPS. It doesn't know where it's needed. Your body wants calcium to go into bones because bones are constantly being remodeled. Old bone is broken down and replaced with new bone. Bones are like a massive construction site with endless demand for building material, but calcium doesn't automatically march to the skeleton like soldiers obeying orders. If calcium isn't guided, it settles, and it will settle wherever it finds a surface that welcomes it. Artery walls, heart valves, kidney tissue, joints, soft tissue. Over months, then years, that becomes layering. A little deposit becomes a bigger deposit. A bigger deposit becomes a calcified plaque. A calcified plaque becomes stiffness. Stiffness becomes disease, and eventually, stone. Arthur's valve didn't turn to stone overnight. It was 8 years of calcium flooding with no traffic control, which brings us to the first and most dangerous mistake. Mistake number 1, taking vitamin D and calcium without vitamin K2. If your bloodstream is a highway system, calcium is like a fleet of vehicles. Vitamin D opens the on-ramp. It increases the number of calcium vehicles entering circulation. But here's the question nobody asks. Once those vehicles are on the road, who tells them where to go? That traffic cop is vitamin K2. K2 activates specific proteins that do 2 crucial jobs. 1, it helps escort calcium into bone, where it belongs. 2, it helps prevent calcium from settling into arteries and valves, where it does not belong. In other words, K2 doesn't remove calcium from your body. It helps direct it. The 2 protein bouncers you want working for you. Think of K2 as the switch that turns on 2 key systems. Osteocalcin helps pull calcium into bones. Matrix GLA protein, MGP, helps keep calcium out of artery walls. Without K2, those proteins are like workers standing around with their arms crossed. The tools are there. The machinery exists. But nobody turned the key. So calcium floats in circulation longer and is more likely to settle where it shouldn't, especially in people already prone to vascular calcification, which becomes more common with age, metabolic issues, kidney problems, inflammation, and diabetes. That is the calcium paradox: strong bones, stiff arteries, a reinforced skeleton, and a hardened cardiovascular system. Why so many adults over 60 are low in K2? Here's the other problem. K2 is not common in modern Western diets. The richest traditional source is natto, a fermented soy food eaten in Japan. Most people outside Japan don't touch it. K2 is also present in certain animal foods, especially from grass-fed sources and fermented dairy. But many people don't eat those regularly, and many modern production methods reduce K2 content. So people take vitamin D and calcium to do the right thing, while their K2 intake stays flat, meaning the gate is open. But traffic control never shows up. What people do instead and why it fails. This is where people say, but my doctor told me calcium goes to bones. No, calcium goes wherever physics and biology allow it, unless the body's directing systems are active. You don't want calcium floating around looking for a place to stick. You want it escorted. So if you're taking vitamin D, especially if you're also taking calcium, you need to think of K2 as part of the same protocol, not an optional add-on. The commonly discussed form is MK7, and many protocols use 100 to 200 mcg daily. But here's a critical safety note. If someone is on blood thinners like warfarin, they must talk to their clinician before supplementing K vitamins, because it can interfere with anticoagulation management. That's mistake number 1. Now let's go to mistake number 2, the one that causes the weird symptoms people blame on vitamin D itself. Mistake number 2, taking vitamin D without magnesium. The missing activation key. Betty was 65, newly retired, former elementary school teacher. Her labs showed vitamin D deficiency, 18 ng/ml. Her doctor prescribed 5,000 IU vitamin D3 daily. Betty did exactly what she was told, every morning. And within 2 weeks, she felt like her body turned against her. Her heart started fluttering, random pounding, skipped beats, irregular rhythms while she sat quietly reading. And at night, brutal leg cramps, full Charlie horses that woke her up in pain. She went back to her doctor and said, "This started when I took vitamin D. I think I'm allergic." But vitamin D allergy is not the usual explanation. What I suspected immediately was simpler and more common. Betty wasn't reacting to vitamin D. Betty was running out of magnesium. Vitamin D is not the finished product. It has to be activated. Here's what most people don't realize. Vitamin D3 you swallow is not automatically active vitamin D. It has to be converted in steps. First conversion in the liver, second conversion in the kidneys. Those conversions use enzymes, and those enzymes require magnesium as a cofactor. So, if magnesium is low and you start pushing high dose vitamin D, you can create a situation where your body is trying to process and activate vitamin D while draining magnesium reserves to do it. It's like buying an expensive appliance and realizing it needs a battery you don't have. Vitamin D is the device, magnesium is the battery. Without enough magnesium, vitamin D metabolism gets messy, and your body starts pulling magnesium from wherever it can muscles, tissues, stores. And when magnesium drops too low, the symptoms can be loud. Why magnesium deficiency feels like anxiety, cramps, and heart weirdness, magnesium helps regulate. Muscle relaxation, nerve signaling, heart rhythm stability, movement of calcium and potassium across cell membranes. So when magnesium gets depleted, you can see palpitations, muscle cramps, twitching, anxiety-like sensations, sleep disruption, constipation. Betty's magnesium blood level was low. We added magnesium, often a well-tolerated form is magnesium glycinate, and within days her palpitations calmed. Within a couple weeks, cramps were gone. She could continue vitamin D without feeling like she was being electrocuted from the inside. That's the key point. If vitamin D makes you feel worse, the solution is not always stop vitamin D. Sometimes the solution is support the system vitamin D demands. Many adults are already borderline low in magnesium before they ever supplement. And some medications can worsen this, diuretics, certain acid blockers, and others. So mistake number 2 is taking vitamin D without magnesium, then blaming vitamin D for symptoms created by an unaddressed deficiency. Mistake number 3, taking vitamin D2 instead of D3, the paper raincoat problem. Now let's talk about a mistake that makes people think vitamin D doesn't work. There are 2 major supplemental forms, vitamin D2, ergocalciferol, vitamin D3, cholecalciferol. They sound similar. Many bottles just say vitamin D in big letters and bury the form in tiny print, but they don't behave the same. Vitamin D3 is the form your skin makes from sunlight. It's the form found in animal foods like fatty fish and egg yolks. Vitamin D2 is plant-derived and structurally different. Yes, the body can use D2, but it tends to be less effective at raising and sustaining blood levels. So people take prescription D2 weekly, get retested, and their levels barely move. Then they're accused of not taking it, or they feel discouraged, or they give up. Margaret's labs wouldn't budge. Until we changed the form, Margaret was 70. She'd been taking prescription D2, 50,000 IU once weekly for over a year. Her levels stayed low, around 25 and 90 ml. Her doctor kept repeating the same script. Are you sure you're taking it? She was. We switched her to D3, a lower total weekly amount, but in a form her body used more effectively. Within months, her levels rose into a healthier range. Same goal, different tool. Mistake number 3 is assuming vitamin D is vitamin D. No, check the label. If it says ergocalciferol, that's D2. If it says cholecalciferol, that's D3. Mistake number 4. Taking vitamin D on an empty stomach with black coffee or water and flushing it away. Frank was 68. He'd been taking 2,000 IU vitamin D daily for 6 months. His levels barely increased. When I asked how he took it, he said, every morning with my black coffee, no food, just coffee. And there it was. Vitamin D is fat-soluble. Fat-soluble vitamins are like oil. They don't mix well with water. If you take vitamin D without dietary fat, absorption can be dramatically lower. Your body absorbs fat-soluble nutrients by packaging them into tiny transport particles in the gut, processes that are stimulated when there's fat present. No fat, fewer transport particles. Fewer transport particles, less absorption. So the pill goes in, and a painful amount of it goes right back out. One small change can double effectiveness, I told Frank. Keep the same dose, same brand, same capsule. Just take it with food that contains fat. Eggs, yogurt, avocado, nuts, cheese, even a meal cooked with olive oil. 3 months later, his levels jumped significantly. Same supplement, different delivery system. Mistake number 4 is treating vitamin D like a water-soluble vitamin and taking it like a breath mint. Coffee, water, empty stomach, done. If you want it to work, take it with a meal, or at least a snack, that contains fat. Mistake number 5, taking RDA level doses and expecting to correct a deficiency, the teaspoon versus the fire hose. This one is the most common mistake, and it's not always the patient's fault. The standard recommended daily allowance on labels is often 600 IU for many adults, 800 IU for older adults. Those numbers weren't designed for optimization. They were designed to prevent extreme deficiency diseases. So if someone's vitamin D is low, say 18, 20, 25 ngml, and they take 600 IU daily, they're basically trying to fill a swimming pool with a teaspoon. It's not dangerous, it's just ineffective. Helen took 1000 IU for a year and stayed deficient. Helen was 73. Level 18 ngml. Her doctor prescribed 1000 IU daily. A year later, she was still low, 24 ngml. Better technically, but still not where we'd want for someone trying to improve bone strength and overall resilience. When we increased her dose to a more correction level routine, paired with the supporting nutrients, her level rose into a more optimal range within months. Here's the important part. Vitamin D dosing should be guided by a blood test, the 25-hydroxy vitamin D test. Not guessing, not label reading, not fear. Test, adjust, retest. And yes, high doses can be harmful in extreme situations, but the scary toxicity stories usually involve prolonged megadosing without monitoring, often combined with high calcium intake and other risk factors. The sane approach is test, correct, retest, maintain. Mistake, number 5, is taking too little, too timidly, for too long, then believing vitamin D does nothing. It often does something, it's just not enough to change your status. The complete picture. Vitamin D is a team sport. By now, you can see the pattern. Vitamin D isn't inherently dangerous, but vitamin D is powerful, and power without context creates collateral damage. Here are the 5 mistakes again, in plain language. 1. Taking vitamin D without K2. You open the gate for calcium, but don't direct it, raising the risk of calcium settling where it doesn't belong. 2. Taking vitamin D without magnesium. You force your body to activate vitamin D while draining the mineral required to do it, triggering cramps, palpitations, and dysfunction. 3. Using D2 instead of D3. You take the less effective form and wonder why your levels don't rise. 4. Taking it without fat. You sabotage absorption and flush much of it away. 5. Taking too little to correct a deficiency. You underdose, never reach target levels, and stay stuck in insufficiency. So if you want a simple framework, think of vitamin D like a quarterback. A quarterback alone isn't a football team. You need the offensive line, you need receivers, you need the system. Vitamin D works best when you take the right form, D3, you absorb it properly with fat. You can activate it with magnesium. You direct the calcium with K2. You dose according to labs, not fear. Test and adjust. Now here's what I want you to do, practically today. Go to your medicine cabinet. Look at your vitamin D bottle. Does it say D2, ergocalciferol? That's the cheap paper raincoat. Does it say D3, cholecalciferol? Good. Now check how you take it. Are you taking it with black coffee and no food? Move it to breakfast or dinner with fat. Are you getting magnesium? If not, that might explain symptoms that started when you began D. Are you pairing with K2, especially if you take calcium? That may be the missing traffic cop. And most importantly, do you know your number? Ask for a 25-hydroxy vitamin D test. Don't guess, because guessing is what got people like Arthur into trouble. Arthur didn't fail at health. He followed instructions. He just didn't get the full protocol. And I don't want that story repeating, quietly, slowly, inside millions of bodies that think they're doing the right thing. Vitamin D can be one of the most valuable tools you use after 60, but only if you use it like a system, not a single pill. Fix the 5 mistakes. Protect your bones without turning your heart into stone.